Have you ever just stopped to think about how weird it is that we actively seek out things that terrify us? I mean, really think about it. We literally hand over our hard-earned cash, sit in pitch-black rooms, and willingly subject ourselves to racing hearts, sweating palms, and just absolute pure terror. From an evolutionary standpoint, fear is an alarm bell, right? It's literally designed to keep us alive by telling us to run far, far away. So why on earth do we run toward it? Well, in this explainer, we're unpacking exactly that. It's something researchers call the paradox of horror. And it is this fascinating gray area where biology, psychology, and pop culture all kind of collide. We're going to decode the exact science behind why our brains secretly crave a really good fright, and how getting scared out of your mind might actually be surprisingly good for your mental health. And just to show you how universal this whole thing is, a staggering 72% of the population watches a horror film at least once every 6 months. Think about that. That is nearly 3/4 of us. This isn't just some niche hobby for a tiny fraction of society. It's a massive, globally shared experience. And what this brilliantly illustrates is that engaging with simulated, fake threats is actually a fundamental part of the modern human experience. Okay, so what exactly is going on inside your head when a massive jump scare hits? Well, your brain basically splits the incoming data. First, it takes what we call the low road. It sends this crude, lightning-fast signal straight to your amygdala, which is your brain's fear center, and triggers instant panic. You gasp, your muscles tense up, and adrenaline just floods your system. But literally milliseconds later, that same data takes the high road, up to your prefrontal cortex. This is your logic center. It quickly realizes, hey, wait, you're just sitting on your couch, and it slams the brakes on the panic. And once that prefrontal cortex confirms that you are totally safe, something magical happens. As clinical psychologist Dr. Zachary Sikora points out, your brain actually rewards you. It starts pumping out dopamine and endorphins. So you aren't just feeling relief that you quote-unquote survived, your brain is actively giving you a chemical high. You get the thrilling rush of the survival instinct, smoothly followed by this awesome flood of euphoric pleasure. There's actually a name for this phenomenon. Psychologist Paul Rosen coined it benign masochism. It sounds pretty intense, I know, but it's basically our uniquely human ability to enjoy experiences that feel negative at first, but that our bodies falsely interpret as threatening. It's the ultimate mind over matter victory. Your body genuinely thinks it's in grave danger, but your conscious mind knows it's entirely a trick. And honestly, we derive a ton of deep psychological satisfaction from mastering that physical reaction. And this concept definitely isn't limited to ghosts and goblins on a screen. Rosen and his team actually identified exactly 29 different activities of benign masochism that produced this exact same hedonic reversal. Basically, 29 everyday ways we turn physical distress into psychological pleasure. Just think about some of these everyday examples. Eating painfully spicy chili peppers, sobbing through a tragic, sad movie, getting a brutal deep tissue massage, or riding a massive roller coaster. These are all what we call safe threats. Animals do not do this. You can't train a dog to enjoy spicy food because they lack the cognitive override to understand that the chemical burn is harmless. But as humans, we actively seek out these mini survival tests just for the sheer thrill of passing them. So let's dive into excitation transfer theory, because this really builds on our biology. This theory basically explains a funny little timing glitch in our bodies. When a scary movie scene ends, your brain realizes you're safe instantly. But your heart rate and your adrenaline, those take several minutes to actually decay and calm down. That leftover physiological energy has to go somewhere, right? So it transfers directly into your positive emotions, amplifying your feelings of relief into this massive euphoric high. But listen, for any of this to actually be fun, you absolutely must have a boundary. Psychologists call these protective frames, and there are 3 of them. First is physical safety, knowing you won't actually be harmed. Second is detachment, recognizing that what you're watching is totally artificial. And third is control, the comforting knowledge that if it all gets too intense, you can just cover your eyes, pause the game, or walk right out of the room. To really picture how crucial these frames are, think of Michael Apter's tiger metaphor. If you happen to encounter a hungry tiger roaming free in the wild, you are going to feel genuine, paralyzing terror. There is 0 protective frame there. But if you see that exact same tiger behind a thick pane of glass at the local zoo, you feel thrilled, fascinated, and completely safe. It's the same tiger, but the context dictates our entire biological response. And there's a super delicate balance to hitting that sweet spot. Researchers actually proved this by strapping heart monitors to guests walking through a commercial haunted house. What they found was a classic inverted U curve. If the fear level is too low, well, you're just bored. If it's way too high, your protective frame breaks entirely and you experience genuine distress. But right in the middle, that is the sweet spot of fear. It's where your body is highly stimulated, but your mind is still totally having fun. So why did we evolve to find this sweet spot so enjoyable in the first place? Enter threat simulation theory. Evolutionary biologists believe that our early ancestors desperately needed a way to rehearse survival behaviors without, actually getting themselves killed in the process. By interacting with simulated dangers, whether that was telling scary stories around a campfire or even just dreaming at night, our brains got to practice threat perception and escape tactics. And the coolest part is, you can literally watch this evolution happen in real time as a human grows up. We start around age 1 with games like Peekaboo, which, if you think about it, are our very first safe jump scares. Then, by middle childhood, we engage in physical risk play, like climbing tall trees, just to test our physical limits. And by the time we hit our teenage years, that physical risk evolves into cognitive risk. We start devouring scary movies and intense video games to test our emotional limits. So here is the absolute game-changer takeaway. Horror actually functions as a sort of cognitive vaccination. Think about how a real medical vaccine works. It exposes your immune system to a tiny, harmless dose of a virus to build antibodies. Well, recreational fear exposes your nervous system to a manageable dose of stress. You practice feeling anxious, regulating your breathing, and tolerating uncertainty. And over time, that builds up your emotional resilience for the real world. And guys, we have hard data proving this actually works. During the massive stress of the COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns, researchers surveyed people on their mental well-being, and they found something wild. Frequent horror fans exhibited significantly lower psychological distress and much higher resilience than non-fans. Why? Because they had literally spent years practicing how to handle ambiguous, chronic stress in a safe, fictional environment. And it paid off big time when the real world got scary. But we rarely do this alone, do we? And when we experience fear as a group, something truly incredible happens. It's called interpersonal physiological synchrony. Studies show that when friends or partners walk through a haunted house together, their autonomic nervous systems actually co-regulate. Their heartbeats literally synchronize with each other. Facing a simulated threat together triggers the release of oxytocin in the brain, which fundamentally strengthens our social bonds. We literally get closer by being scared together. Now, obviously, this whole shebang isn't for everyone. Enjoyment of horror is highly variable. For example, high sensation seekers naturally have a lower baseline of neural arousal, so they genuinely need the intense, over-the-top stimulation of horror just to feel engaged. Empathy plays a massive role too. Highly empathetic people tend to literally mirror the pain they see on screen, which makes horror genuinely distressing for them, while viewers with slightly lower empathy can easily maintain that comfortable, detached distance. Which brings us to one of the most exciting new frontiers in all of this research. Clinical neuroscientists are currently testing high-intensity fear as a literal therapeutic tool for major depression. Depression often locks the human brain into this rigid, exhausting cycle of rumination. But the intense, immediate, forced focus required during a jump scare acts as a neural reset. It temporarily shatters that rumination cycle, engaging underactive circuits in the brain and providing real relief from emotional blunting. So what does this all mean for us? What if the monster hiding in the dark is exactly what your brain needs to heal? As we've seen today, leaning into the darkness, in a safe, controlled way, of course, can build our resilience, deepen our social bonds, and even help rewire our brains for the better. Fear doesn't just have to be a warning sign to run away. It can be a playground, a cognitive vaccine, and an incredible tool for personal growth. Definitely something to think about the next time you queue up a scary movie. Thanks so much for exploring this with me today.